Right then, last bit of this test guy. I don't know if I'm going to get it all done in one little 15-minute chunk because there's two different things to do. The first is that white is going to get dirtied up with a wash, and then the next bit is weathering powders. And I can't do the weathering powders till the wash is dry, so there might be a pause here. I've put the other camera on my light this time rather than on the end of my brush because I think that was a bit much, but again, like I say, very occasionally it might be worth just sticking that there to show you a thing if I can, but I think people were seasick enough the last time I did that, so let's go in with some washers and let's dirty this down. So let's have a look at this view. Let's see if I can stay in the camera. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use trusty Army Painter Strong Tone, and I'm going to make it quite dilute because it's going to be very, very powerful over the white. So that's maybe 5:1, and that still might not be dilute enough, but let's have a look. Okay. So I'm just going to get some kitchen roll, because while I do want a this is saying it's a wash, I don't want my brush that loaded with fluid, so I'm just going to take a little off on the tissue, and then I'm going to put some in. So the first place I'm going to go with this, because I want a little extra shadow there, is just in above the knee plates and in the joints of the feet here. Sorry, just in above the knee plates. And this is going to be a bit of a slow process because I'm going to be needing just to deposit some of the wash and then leave it to dry. Now I think at the moment it's too wet. I'm putting too much liquid on. So I'm going to increase the pigment, because what you don't want is I want it to be able to apply it, have it dry reasonably quickly, because if I leave it on the model to dry in a pool, I will get tide marks, and that's not something we want. So I'm going to take a little down there. That's better. So you can, I don't know if you can see this on camera, but I'm just, where I'm applying it, I'm getting a little change in the colour of the white. So I can use it like here, up against that edge, and dirty it down a little. It might seem a little counterintuitive to people to have gone all that effort into getting a nice smooth white when I knew I was going to do this, but this is, weathering isn't painting. It adds a different thing. It feels different. And if I wasn't working from a smooth white, it just wouldn't work. Some areas I'm going to go in heavier than others, obviously. It's definitely not a kind of all over wash. It's very controlled, going into very specific places. So I'm essentially painting dirt here. We're not painting colour or paint or anything like that. We're painting dirt. It's just helping us get some texture and some contrast. Now, I've got some slight tide marks for me. I'm just going to go in with a wet brush, no pigment on it, and just move that around. So that's one of the advantages of doing this before everything is properly dry. Keeping it kind of wet as you work. And I know this might not be to everybody's taste. I probably take far longer over these models than I should for the results I get, but hey, it keeps me busy. Stops me playing golf. I don't play golf. Nothing against golf. It's just anyway. So that's him dirtied down a little. The next bit is to go in with some powders. I'm just going to hit the hubcaps with a little more muck. And the less obvious places, like inside things where one doesn't normally look. And so, for weathering powders, I buy these shot glasses from pound shops and supermarkets. They're like £1 for 40. They're great for mixing paints in and for mixing paint for the airbrush because you chuck them away. I'm using, this is a MIG pigment, this is dry mud. It's quite a sandy looking pigment. I've used it on a lot of my armies at the moment, just because I want kind of common basing, and I just lift a little out. Now, depending on the result you want for something like this, depends on what surface you're putting it on. I'm not going to varnish or clear coat this before I put this wash on, because I want it to be quite sticky. I want it to adhere to flat, upright surfaces. If you want it just to be in the recesses of a model, then if you hit it with a varnish, with a gloss varnish, then that smooth surface will make the water and thus the pigment run and settle. But this is about kind of road dirt and dust. I am going to use a dry brush afterwards to take some paint off take some pigment off raised surfaces. If this wasn't a test figure, I would varnish the model simply to protect the paint underneath when I do that. But it's, I'm just playing here, so I'm going to do that, and then I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to varnish it. I don't want to take the time. So I'm just going to put a little of my water and flow aid in that pigment, just to create a liquid suspension for it. That's quite thick, but I'm going to put some of that down on the base and the tyres, and then I'll thin before I put it on the armour. being quite... Well, I'll show you. I'm just slapping that on there for the minute. Then I'm going to wet my brush, and with a very wet brush, I'm going to go over it again. And you see it all moves into those recesses. Again. And now that I've got a very wet surface, look at what happens to that. Which is why I keep this thicker, because I can always dilute it more on the model. I may do 2 or 3 applications of this powder, wet like this, and leave it a while, apply some more, leave it a while, apply some more. I have to see how it looks after the first one. Dilute some more, and wash these armour joints a little. Now this is going to give me a little tie marking, but again I can reduce, eliminate that, because the pigment stays, well, it isn't stuck down really. Moisture and a little bit of work can lift that pigment. Even once it's dry. I do is to make him look like he's been on his bike a while. I'm going to leave that to dry, and then I'm going to come back in and do some more. So there we go, it's about the 15-minute mark. I'm going to stop there. I'll probably show you him again when he's done, in the form of some stills, and because the video is not very high resi despite being HD. So thank you for watching. I hope you're getting something from these. Let me know, please update me, and I'll see you in the next one.